by knowing that he was on top of everything and running the meetings. So thank you all from the bottom of my heart. And now, thank you. And now we will go on to board announcements. Lauren?
Okay, well, it's been a busy week, so I have a couple actually. I was able to watch this weekend Growing Up Broadway from POB Middle School. The director, Emma Harrington, and the students did an incredible job. Everything was virtual, and you really proved that the show must go on. My favorite part, though, was the middle of the show. They actually had a montage of the kids growing up. So it was great. Great job, guys. Some things are just really cool that we can continue our musicals, even though we can't have them in our beautiful auditorium. So great job. Thank you for that. I want to congratulate the POBOTs 353 for their great engineering awareness night. Even though, again, we couldn't be together, I know they worked really hard and diligently in giving you guys a great engineering awareness night. So thank you to them. And then to our guidance department. So I sat in on my 11th graders college rep talk, which I thought was so awesome. You know, being a parent of a child who is getting ready to go into those college years, it's a little frightening. But hearing some of the panelists that came, they were wonderful. So there was a panelist from Stony Brook, Ithaca, Northeastern, and the University of Irvine. And they were so insightful, and they answered their questions through our guidance department and through the parents and students so wonderfully. The college admission process was, is not an easy process, and it just was such a great start off to like, what could we expect? And I just want to thank our guidance department. You did a fantastic job, and it was just a great night. So thank you.
We had some students who actually did music for us to listen to, but it was just nice. So they were together, clear and camaraderie that was there. Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Thank you. Gary?
So I just want to thank the superintendent for posting this link. The Drastic Measures, one of our acapella groups made it to the quarterfinals. They put a video on YouTube that, I mean, the production quality of this video, that's my business, that's my life, so, which is so fantastic. It's a 3-minute video. You definitely want to watch it. The girls do a great job performing. Their voices are on point, but the entire production is just fantastic. I don't know whether how far they went to the quarterfinals, but I'm going for the whole thing. So great.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, Dr. O'Meara, Superintendent Announcements.
Thanks for bringing that up, Mr. Baton, because those are a cappella students, and what they've had to transition to, not practicing in person and then learning all the technology to create, edit, and submit such a high quality video. Was it outrageous? I mean, you just couldn't. Oh, Ms. Lieberman wants to jump in.
Perhaps we could have it at our next board meeting.
Oh, we'll play it at the next board meeting on March 24th. Absolutely. So we've been getting a lot of questions about the state of the New York State assessments, and today the Board of Regents met. So I just want to give people a quick follow-up. I'm going to share my screen for a moment from today's Board of Regents meeting. The New York State Department of Education is still pleading with the United States Department of Education via a waiver. They put out a survey of all school districts to see what type of local assessments and vendor assessments we do, the NWA here, for example, that states are using, that the school districts are using in order for the United States Department of Education to make a decision. Is New York okay without giving its current New York State assessments? So should the waiver not be granted from the Department of Education at the federal level, The only Regents examinations that would be given in June are the ELA, Algebra, Earth Science, and Living Environment. There will not be any August Regents exams. And they've decided if we must give the 3 to 8 assessments, only the first day of both assessments, and that is the multiple choice portion. There wouldn't be a written component. Also, with the 4th and 8th grade science exam, it would only be the written portion of that exam, not the performance part of that exam. What people need to know is that they also enacted the safety nets for our special education students and those due to graduate. So as in the past, if a student does not take one of these 4 Regents exams and they are passing the course, they will be granted an exemption and given the Regents credit for that course. I know SEPTA will be with Ms. Espinoza doing more explanation around that. But again, we're waiting. By the end of the week on March 18th, we expect New York State expects an answer from USDA whether they will grant a full waiver of all state assessments. Okay, I'll stop sharing. And echoing what the board members have said, every single event that we used to offer in person went on virtually this year. And it's just amazing with each production and each event, they just add some level of creativity. And I was so heartened by the Triumph induction ceremony, by the efforts of the current members to make sure that the newest inductees were able to enjoy a ceremony that showcased their musical ability. And that's all I have right now.
Well, thank you very much. And now we're going to go on to our budget presentation.
So Mr. Cunningham, you'll start with the superintendent's proposed budget and then I'll do the curriculum.
That is right. I'm just sorting out my screen here. Okay, so tonight we get to the heart of what we do in education, and we are going to run through the proposed budget for all of our educational programs. I'll very briefly run through certain parts of the superintendent's proposed budget presentation. You're going to hear how each school and department has used the district's vision and mission statements to frame the budgets. We've revisited the Board of Education goals. You'll hear about how they have developed budget proposals that are responsive to the goals and responsive teaching and learning, citizenship and safe environment, and finance and facilities we had done in a different meeting. You'll also hear how we used profile of graduate as a touchstone. We're looking forward to the high school's presentation. We're very proud that they're Blue Ribbon High School, and they'll also review some of the highlights of our 2020 graduates, some highlights from the 2021 school year, and look forward to what we believe we will deliver in the 21-22 school year. Just some information. We do think that Plainview Old Bethpage is a great value in education. You can see our bar here is in blue, and we look at some of our comparable districts that we always look at, such as Syosset, Jericho, Locust Valley, East Williston, etc. And then, sorry, I just went backwards there. We look at our student achievement metrics, and we can see that we are always among the highest achieving school districts. Here we have 2019 4th grade ELA scores, and we can see how we compare to our closest neighbors here, Syosset, Jericho, and Manhasset, and we do more with very focused use of our dollars. I'm not going to go much further than this. The superintendent's proposed budget has a proposed budget to budget increase of 1.08% and a proposed tax levy of 2.95%, an allowable tax levy cap of 3.03. We know that the tax related numbers are going to change. Next week in those budget presentations, we will review the revenue schedule, and we do have more news on the revenue side, very good news, which I think will help us deliver a very reasonable tax levy to our residents. We do plan to continue the trend of levying below our allowable cap. And the news, at least out of Washington going to Albany now, as we figure out how the federal dollars of the recently signed aid package is going to flow to Plainview Old Bethpage. And looking at the initial information coming out of the Senate and Assembly New York State reconciliation bills, both bills, propose to eliminate this COVID-19 supplemental stimulus, which was really something that was going to be egregious to us, particularly in the 22-23 fiscal year, when we were going to see essentially a $5 million financial cliff. We are waiting for more news. We do know that our budget will change significantly before it is adopted by the board in April. With that, I am going to pass the presentation on to Dr. O'Mara. Will bring up the curriculum and instruction budget. And Dr. O'Mara, you can just let me know when to advance the slides.
Great. So thank you very much, Mr. Cunningham. And I hope you see in this budget the magic that is the POB academic and extracurricular program, which really makes learning in our environments something spectacular. In the past, this particular budget housed all of the finances for district programs and initiatives. But since the enactment of ESSA, which required budget items to live in the buildings in which they happened, a lot of the curriculum budget has been reduced to just some programmatic expenditures that are across every single building. The transparency report, which is generated, allows community members to see that there is an equitable distribution of the funds among all of our schools. And from the central office perspective, this is pretty important to us in that it assures that we're moving forward as a school district and not a district of individual schools. But most importantly, I hope when you look at some of the curricular initiatives and some of the things we're getting more deep with, you understand that we are lighting a path forward, but also that this year our students have enjoyed a pretty rich and robust learning opportunity and environment. So on the first slide that we have with some of the district initiatives moving forward, our sustained capacity building of Teachers College reading and writing going through the middle schools, our continued acquisition of culturally responsive texts for classroom libraries, our Kid-O-Yo coding program. We really are going to go, we have it in our high school and certain computer science courses. We're going down as low as second grade. This program is very interesting because as young as we go, that is where a student begins his or her digital portfolio that will travel with him or her, and all of the micro credentials they earn in coding and the different coding languages all the way through high school. Kid-O-Yo also maintains their portfolio through their undergraduate work. So if they go to a school and transfer into a computer science program, it's not about what they write on their resume and transcript they're able to do. They have actual evidence of coding projects that have been credentialed. We are going to move this program into all of our computer science programs. Right now, Stony Brook University requires Kid-O-Yo for all of its freshman computer science students. You can skip to the next one, Mr. Cunningham. Thank you. Our Go Math implementation went very well. K-4, it has helped us during the closure and through reopening, and we'll have more focus on everything that program has to offer. Alex is the adaptive web-based program for mathematics where students can accelerate and get deeper with skills they might be not so sturdy on or preventing them from moving forward in the curriculum for mathematics. The K2 social studies curriculum will be aligned with the C3 framework and also an eye toward civics engagement and its alignment to Teachers College units of study for ELA. Our science program went into 3rd and 4th grade, and I have to tell you the hands-on experiments that went with it were absolutely a wonderful supplement to our discovery lab, which we'll be bringing back next year. And as you know, we also built another discovery lab up here in Matlin. So we cannot wait for our students to really be enjoying those hands-on experiments and phenomena when they return to us full-time. We have a new Chinese textbook and summer curriculum projects. Some of our initiatives, the freshman seminar, we got a lot of great feedback on, and our 5th grade academy, so that we can go back and look at that. And now for the dollars and cents of the curriculum budget. We've remained pretty steady. We came at this budget strategically and judiciously, knowing that we were facing some unknowns in the financial future. Most of the items in the budget stayed the same. As I had mentioned earlier, the ESSA requirement of things living in its building were split up, most notably in the staff development. Previously, it was $83,000, reduced to 20, and that would be just for district initiatives across, for instance, like our mental health work. But then we divided it up among the buildings for each building to have its own staff development budget. Everything else here stays pretty much the same, with some in-service supplies being reduced some because they went into the individual buildings budget. Some of the project challenge trips, they were switched to virtual trips this year, and they went very well. And it is important to point out that although it was brought up that we may not be doing the traveling to conferences as we used to, we've been allowed to go to many more because we don't have to leave for several days. And the importance of this particular budget item for the district is that when they're done virtually, the assistant soup for curriculum and instruction can share it with all of her directors and chairs afterwards, because usually those come with a recording of the webinar and all of the materials for it. So it really gets turnkey much better. Next slide, Mr. Cunningham.
Trying, for some reason, I'm a little stuck. There we go.
There you go. Again, most on this page stays the same with the exception of the Boces instructional support. We see an increase here of about $50,000. That is the investment in the Boces model schools that come here, and they show all of the Kiddo and a lot of our technological upgrades, and they provide that for us instead of having to have somebody in-house and pay a salary for that. And it also allows Boces to become experts in those areas and bring those expertise to us. And the importance of going through Boces for a lot of our professional development, it is an expense-driven aid that comes back to us in the subsequent year. So the more that we can put through Boces, the better for us next year in our revenue stream, which we have to keep an eye out for. Some things that stay the same are our district-wide testing, the first code, 2810-413. That is for the cost of the actual assessments, the 3 to 8 and the Regents exams, whereas the 2810-495 is the cost put on school districts to score those exams, put the reports out related to those exams, and process all the Scantrons for those assessments. Let's see. Well, is that a record, Mr. Cunningham? I think I did that in 5 minutes.
I think you definitely get a ribbon for that one. Are there any questions?
Tara?
Just one quick question. Did the orientation costs for the, I guess for the for the 8th, yeah, I guess it's 4th and 8th graders moving into the middle school and high school, did they get moved to the individual buildings as well?
I'm not understanding the question. Can you just, the
I-
orientation?
There was a line that said orientation. I didn't know if that also was.
Can you direct me to the line? I'm sorry.
I think she wants to know, is it the 8th to 9th grade? Is that what you're talking about, or the incoming orientation?
Let me just pull it up.
Transportation, 0.
Oh, that's the transportation for that purpose?
Yeah,
Can you give us a budget code, please?
I just had to pull it up.
It is 5540, Mr. Cunningham, 469. We don't have that in the curriculum budget because we don't transport students out of curriculum. So that would have gone to the individual buildings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That
okay.
cost, yeah,
That's
that's why
in
it
the
went to 0.
transportation budget.
That's what I thought. I
Sorry.
just wanted to make sure I understood it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for curriculum? Okay, we'll go on to elementary schools.
Okay, stand by. Okay, we have our 4 elementary principals here with us. I will be driving the presentation, so every once in a while you'll have to give me a little head nod, but I'll be watching.
Okay, perfect. Good evening, and thank you for having us tonight to present to you our budgets for the 2021-2022 school year. Thank you for all your support and encouragement during this challenging and inspiring year. Challenging because of the pandemic, of course, but inspiring because we realized what we as a district can do for our staff, our students, and our families. We are all proud of the work everyone has accomplished, and we look forward to another successful year. This is our look into next year, and we are pleased to share it with you tonight. Next slide.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Our budgets continue to prioritize district curriculum goals and support responsive teaching and learning. This year, we continue to do the important work with the Teachers College that started before the pandemic. Using Google Meets, we aligned our staff development session with Teachers College trainers to meet the specific needs that were presented during this pandemic, specifically in relation to social distancing. Our teachers worked with small groups and individual students using Google Meets and breakout sessions to meet the needs of each individual learner, and will continue to use the tools that we've learned about as we move forward into next year. Mr. Cunningham? Next slide.
Working on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's very nice to see you all this evening. I'm going to do the slide on lighting the way, citizenship, and safe learning environment. One of the most common themes of this year turned out to be that we as educators realized that we really are all in this together. We all face the same challenges, and as a result, we all decided we needed to be working in tandem and together. To that end, our PTA cultural arts liaisons from each PTA work with Mike Rogers to provide all of our students the same terrific cultural arts events that are out there for our students. That was our in-person and our remote students. We had our first ever district-wide part for all four elementary schools with the theme, "We are all in this together." We each had the same events happening in each one of our schools on the same days. We had a day of students dressing as their favorite literary character. We had guest reader day. It was a tremendous success, and I want to give a huge shout out to our PTAs for really launching that and making that work together. So thank you to that. We also have had our guidance counselor, Mrs. Stephanie Zeidner, has been doing lessons based strictly on social and emotional learning for all of our children. She's done a deep dive into what our kids need during this pandemic, those who are in person and those who are remote. We also have our students in-person classes trying to reach out to our remote classes. And we also have the POB Bridges program, which is an event with our high school students are working with our in-person and remote kids outside of school during having different events such as multicultural events, read alouds, art, singing, and theater. And I've heard that it's a great success. And we've had a lot of people, a lot of our kids jumping into that. Mr. Cunningham, would you move to the next? Thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our budget for Judy Jacobs Parkway School. You'll see that our budget for supplies, our 502, went up a little bit. That is to take care of our new Raptor program, our visitor screening system that we have. So we added some money there. In 520, our 520 code, we went down because we took out our STEAM stuff for right now, because we have a lot of STEAM materials and supplies that are in our buildings already that we will be continuing to use. And in my 481 code, I am purchasing 5 Teachers College libraries for our students in all our classrooms. We're continuing to make sure that they are in every classroom. And this year we'll be buying 5 more. And I think we have 1 more year after that, and we'll have all of our classes taken care of. And that's my budget.
Hi. So as I talk about the Old Beth Page budget, you can see the first increase is the 481 code, which is our textbook code. That went up because I asked for additional funds to finish purchasing my TC libraries. After this year, I'll be done. I also asked for additional funds for K2 guided reading books for all of my classes. They need to be replenished, as well as some diverse books for the libraries for grades 3 and 4. That was something that came out of some of the work we started last year. In addition to that, my 520 code, which is the instructional supply code, you'll see a decrease there. As Mr. Sesney said, we are not purchasing as many STEAM materials and resources this year as we have in the past. We also saved quite a lot of money on chart paper, markers, different reusable things that we didn't use since we closed in March. So we were able to save that and utilize that. And I think we have a nice amount, so I won't have as much next year. In addition, you'll see I have a zero balance in my 590 code. Thank you so much for purchasing all of our desks for all of the kids. We are all now fully implemented. Every classroom has brand new desks. We want to thank you for all of your work that went into that. It's been a transition, but the kids enjoy it and we're working well with it. So thank you for everything. Are there any questions? Everything else pretty much stayed the same.
Just want to, I'm getting some questions about the textbook expenditures. If you recall, we had a 3-year plan to outfit all elementary libraries with the TC libraries that match the units of study. And during our COVID savings discussion last year, we went ahead of schedule by 1 year. So you should see in some buildings a slight decrease in their textbook expenditure.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. O'Meara, that was a good segue into me because my budget for textbooks has gone down. We don't need as many TC libraries in our 481 code, so that is something that has come down. However, my 590 code, which is equipment, we are going to reimagine our STEAM and computer lab for next year and for the next couple of years. We took our STEAM computer lab, we took everything out and created a classroom. So now it's classroom 24 for Mrs. Latterer. And so everything's out of there. So we're going to reimagine what we can do in a STEAM computer lab. And our 502 code, our office supplies, that has gone up a little bit. We needed some things in the office and the new Raptor system for identification of people coming into the building. So that is something that it has increased a little bit. But other than that, that is my budget for this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everybody. And I'll just talk for about a couple of codes over here for Stratford Road Elementary School. One code that I'd like to highlight is that we did have an increase within our textbook code of about $25,000, and that is related to some of the initiatives that are already mentioned. I am going up and will have more of a need for my math textbooks for next year, and also to complete all of my Teachers College libraries. That is where the code is going up in that area. Next, the 520 code is going down a little bit also, and that's for the same reason that my colleagues described, as we have STEAM materials already in our buildings, and so there's no need to purchase extra ones for next year. So those are really the two things that I wanted to highlight. Other than that, other codes are generally the same. Mr. Cunningham, we can move on. Okay, so as we're looking into next year, we're driven by, as stated earlier at the beginning of the superintendent's budget, the POB mission statement, and we're in line with the profile of a graduate competencies as they guide everything that we do in teaching and learning. So this budget promises a solid strengthening of current curricular and instructional practices. This year, we used a much more detailed curriculum calendar, and this was to really ensure as best as we can the alignment and pacing for our in-person and remote learners. We really did like using this curricular calendar and know that this will continue as some revisions are made as we work closely with our chair people going forward. You've heard all of us highlight within our budgets the continued efforts to expand upon our classroom libraries. This budget will ensure that all K-4 students have access to similar book choices. The Teachers College libraries have really given a fresh new look at how libraries are organized. They reflect the diversity, really aligning with our culturally responsive initiatives within the district, and they provide opportunities for future professional development around best practices in reading instruction. Also, this proposed budget takes into account the needs of all of our students. And that's definitely been a concern and something that we've talked about throughout the year. And I know that this board has discussed it. We're going to be continuing to place heavy emphasis on early intervention through not only supporting at-risk students, but just the idea of early intervention through prevention. And it will work on strengthening our multi-tiered systems of support for both academic and social emotional needs. We look forward to a successful year end. And as we look ahead, we're prepared for whatever comes our way for September. And as we've been talking, we are reminding ourselves of how lucky we are that we have fresh beginnings each September. And that's a close for our budget proposals for next year.
Thank you. Questions, Susan?
Thank you, everyone, for your budgets that are very carefully crafted, I can tell. I have two general questions for, I don't know who wants to answer, if it's a Rich question or if one of the principals wants to take the lead on it. So my first question is about textbooks in general. I understand your lines are primarily going to Teachers College, but what is our lifespan of textbooks in general in our district? You know, the math books, obviously the 1-year workbooks I know are yearly, but what does a textbook have a lifespan for in our district, especially in the elementary school? Do we have to replace them every 5 years, every 10 years? I mean, I'm just making these numbers up.
I guess I could speak a little generally to that question. Within math, we don't actually have hardcover textbooks any longer. The Go Math program, they are consumable, they're soft cover. So each year we do have to replace those. So that's why when you look at our budgets in the 481 code, it's, not inexpensive, but we don't have to, we're not on a basis of turning those over every few years. It is each year. Other than that, we really don't have any other traditional types of textbooks that the children are using.
Okay.
So if I can just elaborate on this, and perhaps Dr. O'Mara has something to say also. Traditionally, we would talk about a textbook adoption cycle, and our usual life cycle was about 5 years. But as Dr. Clark said, we're not buying as many of those hard-covered textbooks anymore. So really, it becomes more of a program review every 5 years. Sometimes the programs stay with us longer. There might be updates to the program that we adopt in whole or in part. And other times it's time to change those right on the 5-year cycle. But that tends to be the lifestyle of the adoption, implementation, and then review process, 5 years.
All right, thank you very much for that. And my second question, prior to pandemic, some of the buildings, most of the buildings, I believe, were dabbling in clubs. You started student governments, you had newsletters, etc. I know you've tried doing some of it virtually, and including the remote. Where in the budgets are those embedded as far as, because I would like to, relationships are going to be key to coming into September. We don't know what's going to happen, but I wanted to know what your thinking is for having the clubs come in, and where would they be embedded in these type of budget lines? And again, I'm not looking to single out a specific building, if that could be a general question, or could be answered at a later time.
So
if you want to.
the clubs, since the clubs are really in the salary codes, which we don't see here. So that would be something we'd find in the salary codes, somewhere in the 130s, I believe, in the salary codes. Each school still has the appropriation for clubs for next year. At the elementary level, we did not really look to relaunch them in the virtual world like we did in the high school.
Okay, thank you.
Is that something you would like to see, Ms. Stewart?
It would be something, because I believe all the clubs that you've had in the past were great. And I think going forward, relationships and bringing the students back together, we're going to need all those little things, I think, to pull them together. So if that's possible, if we can see that, that's my opinion.
Thank you. Tara?
So I just wanted to say, I I appreciate that we're taking into account all the needs of all of our students, that the administration and the buildings are hearing the board, and I think we're all sending a consistent message with that. And the idea that we're doing things not only through early intervention, but also prevention, and we're really getting on top of everything, especially as we transition back. And it's great to see that carryover, and that's our mentality of a growth mentality. Also, the continued focus on SEL as we continue into the next year, recognizing how important that is. I also love that we're not stuck in the old text and beholden to, like, when you got a textbook as a kid and it has like your parents' name in it. And I don't even know how it's relevant anymore, and how we're constantly just relooking at our curriculum with the growth, our children's growth in mind, just as we expect them to grow, with that we're looking at the materials we're using to do that. So thank you all for, I'm sure, what was not an easy task.
Gary?
I think I brought this up, we're all hoping that all the kids can be in the way we used to have elementary classrooms set up, as opposed to the new partition way of doing it.
Mr. Patan, you have to turn on your microphone.
I know I mentioned this in the prior, but I think we're all hopeful come September that we have the kids in the classroom in the kind of layout we worked so hard for so many years to do, as opposed to the rows.
Mr. Patan's microphone is still off.
It's on. On. Okay, what do I do? Say, can we go to Zoom? Check 1, 2. Can I borrow it?
I'm checking with the tech to find out why it's not going through.
Tech is working on it, Mr. Cunningham.
That's very nice sharing.
Dankeschön. No, just kidding. So can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Yes?
We
All right.
can.
In a prior meeting in the budget, I talked about how we're all hopeful come September that we can get the kids back in the traditional, the way we worked for so many years to have an elementary classroom look, with the kids together in pods and working centers and different centers where they all get together on a rug, on a carpet, sitting together. I know we were even doing things like bean bags and other creative ways for kids to be able to sit and be more comfortable in classrooms. So I just wanted to know, I brought it up last time, do we have money in the budget that if the world comes back and we can open up as we were before, that we can spend the time and the money over the summer and get these classrooms back the way we all wish they could have remained through the whole thing?
Do you want me to take that? I'm looking at everyone on the screen right now. I mean, definitely, if we could go back to the way it was, we have all of those things stored away and ready to be brought out. They're waiting to come back out. We didn't look at it as saying that we would need to purchase more at this point, just knowing the status of where we're at right now. But we know that we've definitely learned a lot this year about new ways to teach and work with our children, but we're ready to bring the other furniture back in.
Awesome. Thank you.
No, you're not on, Deb.
Hi, I have a comment and a question. First, I just want to say how happy I was to see culturally responsive teaching and learning in everybody's budgets at all levels. So thank you. And then my question is about staffing. So I just want to ask, I know that we're doing staffing at our next meeting. And I wanted to know, with all of us speaking about social and emotional needs that we might be seeing next year, if hopefully we reopen in a post-pandemic school year, are we considering increasing our elementary guidance counselor to 2 so that the one person doesn't have to just be 25% in each of the elementary schools? Or are we thinking of doing something else to address what, I certainly anticipate as a lot of need from students and staff, particularly remote students that haven't been in school for over a year. I'm not looking for an answer tonight, but can we discuss that when we discuss staffing at our next meeting?
I'll take that, Mr. Cunningham. Absolutely. And I have to tell you, today, the community received an invitation to the first district-wide mental health and wellness, and this is a perfect charge for them. And just with regard to staffing, we did use 1920 staffing numbers to create this budget because this year we didn't add the 48 extra people.
Right.
But, we're going to be judicious on who comes back because we don't know what that need is. And we don't know what the requirements for reopening will be. But I'm sure you're making a lot of people's hearts sing when you talk about putting another guidance counselor in the elementary, because our elementary guidance counselor does incredible work. And this year she was split 6 ways to the 4 elementary schools and then the remote school.
Right.
And it was a lot, but she really did a lot of great work with our kids. So thank you.
Well, am I now on? Good, okay. Tara?
Yeah, I wanted to just piggyback really quickly on what Debbie was saying, because I mean, in terms of my kids and in terms of the other buildings with people in elementary school, the parents I've spoken with, it's been a big deal this year. These kids are being thrown into new situations. They're even trying to socialize online. So going next year might be a big deal as well. So I appreciate that you've asked them to consider that and make sure that we keep that in mind. I'm going to second what she's said.
Ginger?
I just want to say how much I appreciate that also. I think that we have spent almost every meeting talking about social and emotional needs and everything else, and mental health. And when you listen to conversations across the country, it's all about mental health. No one is talking about the catch up for a kid as much as they are worried about the well-being. How are we going to make these kids whole and help them through? And I think many of us don't know what to anticipate for children who will be home for a year and a half without being in a social setting, without having different rules and regulations about how a class is working, and hands-on with the teacher right in front of them. And I think that the adjustment factor is going to be beyond anything. So whatever we can do, even if it's a one-year thing, to make sure that these kids get the help they're going to need. And also the staff, it's going to be very different. You're going to have jittery kids. You're going to have kids who just are scared or petrified to be in a classroom. And how everybody's going to have to work together to make sure we get it. Thank you, Deb.
Okay, now we're going to go on to our middle schools. Thank you, elementary principals.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Dr. Caldonato, are you
Thank
going to be sharing your screen?
Sure thing. Just give me 1 second.
All right, Dr. Caldonato, you ready to?
Give me yep, if I can get a thumbs up, if you guys can see that.
Looks good.
We see it.
Oh, sounds great. All right, we're going to get started right now. Dr. Bowman, I guess you're going to get started for us.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. First, I'd like to start off by thanking the Board of Education and our central administration for your continued support as we've navigated through an unusual, I guess you could say, unique year. Hopefully it's unique in that we will begin next year with a return to somewhat of a sense of normalcy. This year at both middle schools, we've supported programs for our in-person students, our remote students, and our hybrid students all within one building and with 2 different bell schedules. So we've worked really hard to make sure that our students' social and emotional, as well as mental health needs were met as best as we possibly could. We've implemented programs so that our technology has expanded and continued to develop through the year. And we're hoping that we'll be able to continue with that for next year with Google Classroom extensions and add-ons, as well as different uses so that the use of technology is very targeted. We've also really worked to make sure that we have programs in place to help us identify the needs for academic supports in both buildings, and also targeted support once we find out exactly what the needs are so that we can close any gaps that may have formed. We do this always with the goal of making sure that above everything, the middle school experience, which is an exploratory experience for our kids, continues so that they are ready to go on to the high school when they leave us at the end of 8th grade. Dr. Coladonato, you can move to the next slide.
There we go.
Okay, so when we talk about social, emotional, and mental health, we really do want to make sure that we use the different tools that the district has provided for us in order to meet the needs of our students. This year in particular, we did use the 5th grade academy, which was something that developed as an outgrowth of our PTA curriculum committee. And it's taught our students in 5th grade, our youngest students who came to us after having been home from March until June, and then found themselves either in the middle school for the first time in person or virtually. And the 5th grade academy was delivered over the course of the fall into the spring with the help of our guidance counselors and through a curriculum project that was headed by Christine Proles from Matlin Middle School. We are working really hard to make sure that our extracurricular program is still intact as much as possible. I know that earlier in the presentation, you mentioned the POB Middle School Drama Cadets performance, which was dropped on YouTube on Friday night, Growing Up Broadway. And that's just one example of the creative ways that we've developed in both middle schools to really make sure that our students' connections to the buildings were maintained throughout this unique school year. We are continuing to grow our MAP programs, and we have each month that is aligned with one of the 7 habits from Leader in Me. And we continue to work through that. Right now, we are working through Women's History Month. And so we've worked to try and make sure that the communication between school and home continues. And so you've received messages from the schools about what we're doing each week in MAP now that we've got Fridays as part of our schedule for our 7th and 8th graders.
Thank you, Dr. Bowman. I want to thank the Board of Education. I want to thank Central Office for supporting our middle schools. I also want to give a shout out to our elementary principals for doing such a wonderful job with our elementary students who are always so well prepared to join us in middle school and really take on a really new experience as they become 5th graders, and then watching them grow into 8th graders to graduate into the high school. Our goal in Matlin at POB at middle school always is for our science students to act like scientists, our ELA students to transform into writers and critical thinkers, in social studies, develop students that are civic-minded and become educated citizenry, in mathematics to collaborate and problem solve, and in our special areas to explore topics that may interest students, give them a well-rounded middle school experience in a really safe learning environment. On this slide here, I'm going to focus on a couple of items, but I just want to introduce the slide as we get started here with our highlights for next year's budget. As part of our operating budget to educate our students in both middle schools, these budgets really reflect the academic and social emotional responsive practices that we've developed over the years. While there are items that are generally aligned historically to similar expenditures, I do want to highlight some areas where there has been some reallocation and new allocations. We've developed this budget as many of our colleagues in the elementary school have also shared, we've developed this budget with a focus on our mission statement and with a real focus on the profile of a graduate and their competencies. I want to bring everyone's attention to item 590 and the equipment code. The item reflects funds that have been reallocated in past cycles. We focused on flexible seating and desks, and it's going to reflect that reallocation in the following items. We're not going to be making purchases for next year in these areas. We've done a nice job with our flexible seating and adaptable seating, and we're really just looking forward to getting those out of storage at some point and really getting them back into classrooms at some point. So we're excited to really look in that direction. In the 520 code, there's a reallocation in instructional supplies. It reflects allocated money for the next budget season. And there's a little bit of an increase you'll notice, and that's for graphing calculators. We found a need for the graphing calculators. And so that will reflect in the 520 code. I'll bring your attention to 481, our ELA. Past budget cycles have reflected updates in leveled reading in grades 5 and 6 classrooms. The current budget cycle the current budget reflects resources that will support teachers, college, reading and writing, and resources that also provide academic intervention services for students who may have challenges in areas of curriculum. And of course, we continue to put into place preventative measures as well. One of the last areas that I do want to discuss with everyone is in the 481 Code for Social Studies. And our social studies text purchases focused on 5th and 6th grade and past budget cycles, which allowed for some savings in next year's proposal, and that is reflected. Other than that, many of the items have really stayed kind of flat in this budget cycle and the proposal that we're looking for next year. I'm going to transition our presentation to Dr. Bowman's presentation. So this is the budget for the proposal for next year in POB Middle School.
All right, thank you.
My pleasure.
So similarly, we have some differences in budget allocations at POB Middle School. So for our 481 code for K-6 ELA, you'll see that we have a more focused approach to the TC reading and writing program, which is including the addition of a 5th grade argument and advocacy library, which is actually where the students are right now. A 5th and 6th grade high interest nonfiction library and a 6th grade social issues library, which again, that's where the students are right now in our schools. You'll see that in our world language textbook line, which is the 48107. We had purchased a number of Descubre, which is the Spanish textbook that they use in our schools for the middle schools last year, which are able to be used again moving forward. So we don't have the same need there as we did, but we also have a change in the Chinese textbooks that we're using at the middle school level, which Dr. O'Mara discussed earlier during the curriculum presentation. If you look at our 520 code for instructional supplies at POB Middle, you'll see that there are some differences. Those are based on graphing calculators, but also our robotics program, science lab supplies, and other pieces of equipment that support our STEM programs at the middle schools. At POB Middle, we didn't buy the supplies last year because of COVID, and so we do need to replenish those supplies this year. The 590 code, which you see there is a significant drop in what we are asking for. That comes with our suspension of right now adding more flexible seating. I did have a 5-year plan, which has been extended as a result of COVID and the pandemic seating that we have, which was discussed earlier. But as soon as we have the ability to take our flexible seating arrangements out of storage and put them back in classrooms and continue to build on what we've already built, we are looking forward to that very much. And that concludes POB Middle's budget presentation.
Thank you. On slide number 6, I'm going to begin with lighting the way forward and the proposed budget supports. Our focus has been on responsive teaching and learning as it's demonstrated in a couple of areas. One of them is technology with a STEAM lab and Broadway for 5th and 6th grade students, looking to build on that program that we started a couple of years ago. Building on the momentum that has been established over a year ago, providing teachers with access to online resources and platforms in supportive instruction. And that means an example, excuse me, I'm sorry, guys. And the example includes digital texts, Chrome extensions, and apps for student engagement in the classroom. And I'm going to have Dr. Bowman take on the next part with
Okay.
social emotional health and mental health.
Yeah, so we are looking to embed as much social, emotional, and mental health awareness and support as possible through the classroom curricula across grade levels. We have, as I said earlier, the 5th grade academy, which we're looking to expand through multiple grades in the next school year. We are continuing to work on our academic interventions with culturally responsive classrooms and making sure that we are able to support the changing needs of our students moving forward. To that end, in the middle school, you see the beginnings of the media literacy program, which takes flight when you get to the high school. And there is definitely a connection between, learning to be a citizen of the world and living in the world that we are, and tying that all together with social, emotional, and mental health issues. We are also looking to make sure, I think we're up to the next slide, Dr. Clodenau. Nope, okay.
Nope, this is it.
Yep, okay, so we're also looking to make sure that we have the academic supports that are necessary for our students next year, but also really making sure that we support any enrichment programs that need to be implemented. So again, supporting our TC readers and writing program, NWEA benchmarking for Fontes and Pinnell. We will continue our work with Go Math and making sure that our students and teachers are provided with as much support as they need in that area. We will continue using IXL and ALEX in math for supports. And just in general, making sure that we have the opportunities available to really start heading toward a post-pandemic world for our middle schoolers.
Thank you. And our last part of our presentation really focuses on the last bullet on this presentation, supporting the social, emotional, and mental health needs of students in a pandemic and a post-pandemic school environment, and really thinking about that through the lens of citizenship and safe learning environments. Really important for us to continue our work in building our middle school advisory program and being sure that we deliver for our students in each of our buildings, and making reaffirming our commitment to the Leader in Me program as well. And I was so happy to hear earlier in our presentations the idea of clubs. We've had our clubs work virtually this year, and while they have sustained the children the best that they can in a virtual world, we're really excited to getting back to the real world, so to speak. So really excited to getting clubs going again in school, if at all possible. Looking forward to our kids playing in athletic programs and seeing them in action in performance groups. So all really exciting stuff to look forward to, and really making the middle school experience a well-rounded experience for all students, where they can just find their niche, explore, learn, and feel safe. And I think that brings us to the end of our part of our presentation here. And if there are any questions, we will take some questions.
Susan?
Thank you very much. And thank you for noting the clubs, because that's where I'm going right now. I'm so happy to hear it. And obviously listening to the POB drama cadets the other night was wonderful. Just one question, and we've had these conversations since I was in PTA, equity, and I'm just noticing that in the budget lines between both middle schools, there's a little bit of a discrepancy between the club amounts, and I'm just trying to get a handle why. I know you are, this is your buildings and you're free to do it, but I just want to make sure that both sides, both schools are giving both the same amount of options. And I know you both have, very active clubs, and I applaud you for that. But there's about $1,800 difference in the lines.
A lot of it has to do with differences in enrollment. I have over 100 more students across grade levels, which proportionately speaking, answers most of those differences.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tara?
So mine's not as much of a question, but I just wanted to say, I was really like taken aback when you talked about the areas in which you're expanding the different libraries. That's really exciting. I think those are very exciting areas. And then the idea of expanding the fifth grade academy, I look forward to seeing how that's going to happen because I think that's going to be extremely helpful. And just to piggyback a little bit off what Susan was saying, I think one thing that we as a community can take out of this experience is something that it looks like we've been trying to do. And even with the continuity of instruction among grade level generally, and just continuity of comparable experiences and exposures to students, not exactly the same, but comparable experiences, so that when they're going back to school, I'm sure everybody's going to talk and make sure that, they're having comparable experiences among all the different buildings that we have. So I'm excited to get these clubs back and get everyone back in school. And I just hope it's going to happen and happen quickly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tara.
Thank you.
Lauren?
I just want to thank you both. I know that there's a lot of happy children in your, walking your halls, and to that, for the students that are not walking our halls as of yet, I just want to give, a shout out to you guys for a program that I can't believe you didn't mention because I think it's fantastic. And I want my school board members to know about it, called the virtual networking program, where students that are in school buddy up with a student that is virtual. And so that I know just started, and I think it's fantastic, so that a student that is virtual gets to talk to a student that's in school, so they feel that connection. And I think that's amazing. I think that was great that you guys brought that to the school district, so that that student that's outside does feel that connection back into our school, and it eases them back in. So I just wanted to give you guys some props for that, and tell my board members about it, because I know it's fairly new, and I love it. So I think that's fantastic. I know our PTAs came to us about additional virtual clubs if we're still a little bit in our hybrid world when we go back to school. I hope we're not, but in case we are, I know that our PTAs have come to us. I don't know if our students have come to you. I know Gary and I have always talked about, and I know it's not our school. I mean, it is our school, but it's our students' school. Just talking about like virtual sports, esports, stuff like that, or just out of the box kind of new sports, new activities, or virtual opportunities that are out there for our students. So I know our PTAs have mentioned it to us, and I know that you guys are so open to listening to our PTAs. So I'm sure they've mentioned it to you too. I just wanted to mention it. That's all. But great presentation. Proud of our middle school. Proud of all our schools.
Thank you, Mrs. Saxton.
Thanks, Lauren. Other questions? Okay, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what everybody has said. When we discussed a few years ago the difference in population of POB and Matlin, the board made a commitment that resources and staffing would be what they need to be at POB Middle School. And I just want to make sure that this budget contains that, so the board's promise can be kept.
I'll speak to that. And I would say absolutely. We have, first, I have a really talented staff who works tremendously to make sure that we bring the kids what they need. But we also feel fully supported by Central and the board at every turn. Even just talking about the libraries, we have more students, so I need more libraries, and being able to provide our kids with those resources and all of the different things that we need to make sure that the more students that are in our building are provided with what they need. Taking that and also adding to it, we just recently made it so that our 5th and 6th graders could go back to their specials classrooms to kind of start that process, knowing that we were able to do what we could to make it happen, and that we had your full support in that process, really did make it so that we had the opportunity to be as creative as we could and get as many of our students back into their special classrooms as possible. So I don't know if I'm answering your question directly, but I will say that 100% we feel very supported over here. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Bauman. And thank you both for this great presentation. And we look forward to seeing everything wonderful that's going to go on next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you,
Debbie.
thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
And good luck to my high school colleagues.
Good luck, guys. Have a good night, everybody. It was great seeing everybody.
And now our high school.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Hopefully you can all hear me. I'm Jim Murray, principal of POB JFK. For our viewers that are unfamiliar with the high school, Assistant Principal Beltrani and I are very happy to be here tonight to present the high school's budget for the 2021-2022 school year. Our budget has been crafted with the vision and mission of our district, along with our Board of Education's goals in mind. You'll see that our requests are well aligned to them and they support achieving such goals, all the while being reflective of post-pandemic needs. As I listen to the reports from our elementary and middle school colleagues this evening, I'm proud to say that we are all in sync in our plans to support our students. Their social and emotional needs are at their forefront. Beginning with slide number 1, as we begin our presentation, please join us in celebrating ways our students, faculty, and staff have been lighting the way this school year. I start off with the announcement of the class of 2021's valedictorian in Yerushalmi and our salutatorian, Elijah Blum. Listed below them are POB JFK's achievements made by many of our 1,553 scholars to date. There is so much to be proud of. And as you can see, I can spend all night talking about them all. Going on to slide number 2, we addressed the need for responsive teaching and learning in the midst of the pandemic when it was most needed. We searched for and discovered ways to provide opportunities for personal and academic growth for our students. Listed are just some of the field trips, guest speakers, and assembly programs we provided this year for our students. Nothing stopped us from creating memorable learning experiences for them. On to slide number 3. This slide speaks to citizenship and a safe learning environment. Be it COVID-19 safety protocols, a remote learner to-go bags, a Unity Day Padlet activity which addressed what unity means to you, and an honor pledge initiative to reinforce academic integrity and demonstrate we are better than that. We embraced student voice and opinion and challenged our students to be their best selves. On to slide 4. We addressed the co- and extracurricular programs offered this year. With over 50 active clubs, including 4 new ones, there truly is something for everyone at POB JFK. Creative ways were used to ensure all events that could take place did in fact take place. I know Ms. Stewart would like this slide in particular, knowing that all of that stuff has continued.
I don't know if you can see me, Jim.
I beat you to it. On to slide number 5. Slide 5 speaks to community connections, distance together. Here you will see our student interest in helping others, whether it be animals in need, student athletes from impoverished districts who are in need of equipment, or community members in need of food or someone to help shovel their snow, just to name a few. Our students did not fail to come to their aid. They even sent Valentine's Day cards to members of our senior community. We really have the best students. I know I don't have to tell you that. On to slide number 6. Here's where it all happens. As I present the details within the proposed high school budget. Significant codes on slide 6 address office supplies, equipment, driver education, field trips, graduation, and textbooks. You will see most referenced have been reduced greatly due to efficiencies. In some codes, we were able to reallocate funds to other areas. And in a couple of cases where you see an increase, for example, our math and world language textbooks, they are part of our scheduled renewal and replacement plan. As we spoke about earlier in this presentation tonight, there typically is a 5-year cycle that we go with regard to textbooks, creating new ones, and that kind of a plan is in place. A popular question we often get asked is, when talking about textbooks, are we purchasing online editions? And yes, they are included in this budget proposal. Important to note, resulting from proper planning, our total for textbook requests is approximately $75,000 less than the current school year. And on to slide number 7. On slide 7, codes of interest involve instructional supplies, Boces occupational education tuition, Boces Twilight program, the competition fees for club allocations. I'm proud to announce that we were able to meet the needs for all of our students within our high school budget through this budget, and have been able to reduce our request by almost $200,000 from last year. And that is all done without compromising the integrity of our budget and what we are trying to accomplish for our students. Slide 8. Slide 8 is dedicated to supporting the work of our research, media, and EMT programs. For our science and our behavioral research students to conduct their studies, or our aspiring movie producers to learn video production, or for our future essential workers. For example, our students enrolled in our EMT program. They're all learning now what their chosen career would be like. Also to note, within this proposed budget, reductions have been made due to efficiencies. It is $17,600 less than the prior year. And slide number 9. As we continue to light the way forward toward the 2021-2022 school year, in slide 9, we demonstrate how reflective we are of what is going on in the world and our desire to prepare our students for tomorrow. Our new course offerings like Chinese Level 5 Pre-AP, College Advanced Investment Strategies, and Twilight's personalized learning experience, they, along with all the others that we have listed, reflect our responsibility to ready our students for post-high school life experiences and academic studies. Slide 10. Slide 10 illustrates just how we use this budget as a means of creating a safe and supportive learning environment for all students. We did this by ensuring CDC guidelines pertaining to instructional safety equipment continue, along with supporting instructional technology programs and equipment. This year, our high school was recognized as a Blue Ribbon School and has been selected to create a video on their website specifically addressing our great work with media literacy. It is such work that has created civic-minded, independent, critical thinkers in our school. Here we have identified areas of the budget that support such necessary work with our students. Slide 11. As we are strong believers in expanding opportunities for collaborative learning, we include in this budget line online subscriptions to programs that provide students with immediate instructional feedback. We support our new courses by providing materials necessary for their success. And we secure technological hardware like VEX robotics kits and podcasts that provide alternative and innovative methods of teaching and learning. And now, finally, on to slide 12. With that, I bring to you slide 12 and the conclusion of our budget presentation. I'd like to thank all of our department supervisors who put great thought and effort into each line item. The greatest thanks go to Assistant Principal Beltrani, who learned how to develop a budget for our district's largest school in the midst of the most challenging times. Her care and concern for our students while being fiscally responsible is visible in each proposal made. I would also like to thank our central administration and of course, our Board of Education for guiding us through difficult waters with great care and great concern. Thank you all for your time. And of course, Ms. Beltrani and I are here if you have any questions specific to the budget that we can answer for you at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Questions? Susan?
Thank you, Mr. Murray. And yes, you got me. I appreciate it. I do appreciate everything you're doing with the students, the clubs. It is making connections. And I'm so proud. The new POB bridges, all I hear about are accolades that are coming from younger parents of younger students, and connecting with the older. They just love it. I've always known that kids always, the older and the younger students always seem to
So important.
pair off. I mean, the relationship was built and, I think it's great. You've done a terrific job and it shows in the academics, the clubs. I do have one question. With the business textbooks, you were down almost 50%. I just want to make sure with business textbooks, there's always so much going on technology-wise with Salesforce happening and coding and Microsoft and Google's changing certain things. And it might not be textbooks, but there might be software downloads that need to happen. Are we capturing it? I just don't want to, because these are skills that they'll need for college, they'll need for, if they're not going on necessarily to college, maybe for office skills or just life skills and knowing, we talk about balancing checkbooks, but they still have to balance on a bank account regardless if it's online or in paper, things like that. So
I greatly appreciate your interest in that. And I can tell you with Ms. Carnesi's work with the business department and the teachers within that department, they are extremely on top of different initiatives as well as programs that are important to their program. It's what keeps them going. And they know that they have to remain current. It's one discipline in particular that we have at the high school that is always trying to stay several feet ahead.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Murray, Ms. Beltrani, and all of the assistant principals and chairs and directors. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to go on to our athletic, physical education, health and recreation. Oh, now
Actually,
we're going to go on to pupil personnel. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. And thank you for this opportunity to share the initiatives that we've been able to complete this year with your support and the PPS proposed budget for next year. Taking a look at our points of pride, thanks to the support of the Board of Ed for our robust special education programs. Because of the array of the continuum you support and we offer, our students meet with academic success and leave here prepared for great post-secondary outcomes. The pathway students travel may be different, some with general education with supports, all the way to special class, which allows for the outcomes you see here. Through our work study programs and the work of Debbie Neiman, our transition coordinator, with our special education teachers and guidance counselors and related service providers, students who are identified to need work experience to support the CDAS pathway for graduation are identified and early on and are able to earn local diplomas with that pathway. 2 students graduated this year, one actually from this cohort and one who had stayed on till they were 21 with SACs. With the ability here, again, with the life skills program, our life skills team and our transition coordinator, creating community partnerships where our students learn valuable job skills and then go on to employment in the community. As we move on to the next slide.
I'll get there in a second.
Okay.
All right, there you go.
Thanks. You see here that these accomplishments for this year in the area of responsive teaching and learning really align with the profile of the graduate and the district's mission by assuring inclusive environments and meeting each student's individual needs. Jen Lott, our assistant director for the elementary school, has worked with Gina McGarry, our mental health workers, and the district mental health team in assuring the success of the Northwell South Oaks partnership. I know you recently received a memo explaining how effective and supportive that partnership has been on many levels, including professional development for our community and for our staff, along with really establishing continuity of care for our students. Justin Joya and Sandra Parmentier have begun the professional development of our staff and students in self-directed IEPs. And we continue to work with our consultants, Beth Lacretz, in assuring the use of many models of co-teaching effectively for targeted instruction for our students, even during these new times of co-teaching in the virtual world. If we move on to our next slide, here is where we really look at this citizenship and safe learning environment. You see here that we were able to support our extended school year summer program with our budget, honoring all safety guidelines. We were able to have Eric Rosen come in, who did professional development on mental health and supporting our students in the virtual world for parents and our staff. Again, here we continue to support the mental health screening so that we can ascertain students who may be in additional need of support, and our mental health team's guidance and our PPS team working hand in hand build plans to support those students. Here again, we needed to support materials for related service providers in order to keep students safe. They were separate types of supportive packets that we used to be able to have students work on together, but they really needed to have their own. At the high school, our vocational training in-house this year, they developed their own DoorDash, which was kind of like Uber Eats in the school, within the school, worked in the mailroom and in Pace Lab, and TAG and Best Buddies and SOS continued to support our inclusive environments. In addition, a large part of our budget this year supported our COVID nursing care and the limited services, laboratory training and materials in order to keep our environment safe. We continue to support the CPI training for crisis prevention intervention, and we had a couple of curriculum writing activities this year. Moving on to the next slide, you see that over the years, you'll note that the numbers of classified students do continue to grow. Specifically this year, we've noticed an increase in students in our preschool CPSE services searching out support for their students. The piece that I'd like to highlight here is that students going to out of district or other school district programs has decreased in relatively small increments. And if you turn to the next slide, you'll see that we strive to keep our students in their home district, and the district supports the measures that allow this to happen. With increased behavioral and emotional support that you've allowed us to utilize, we have been able to facilitate students remaining in district. You will see, however, that due to the increase in salary and tuition for students with more needs at Boces programs, expenditures remain the same or increase, as you can see in budget line 2250-492. So as we pop into the budget, you'll notice that there are some areas where there are small decreases and then areas, of course, for increasing. I'm going to just highlight a couple of areas. We do see a decrease in 2021 590 due to our offices being new and less of a need for equipment in the office. There is a new line for charter schools 2110 473 because we do have a student who's attending a charter school and we needed to fund this. There was an increase in 2250-200 for specialized equipment our students are using to access the general education and the repairs and warranties associated with those expenditures. If you take a look at line 2250-400, there is an increase in the ABA services for the consultant services. This line really incorporates the services for our most needy learners that require support at home and or very individualized programs to try and maintain them in district or to support their most intensive needs in out-of-district programs. Also an increase in 2250-449 due to the increased diversity and cultural responsiveness for our students in our community. we have an increased need for bilingual evaluations. And in looking more closely at students' needs as they relate to dyslexia, we have had an increase in independent neuropsychological evaluations, which all fall in that code. You will notice that there is a decrease in 225470, and I'm going to give accolades to Lucy Padone, who I'm sure all of you know for years, who will be retiring in May and has done amazing things for our budget work here. She came up with a new system where we've been able to ascertain the related services for our private school students, so we were able to cut down expenditures there. And as I mentioned, 2250, 492 is that budget line where, although there are less students going out, those budget needs and allocation remain the same or go up because of the salary and tuition associated with Boces programs. If we take a look at the next budget slide, you'll note here that there are increases in the equipment lines for vision and audiometer materials for our nurses as we are beginning a process of replacing some of the old equipment that we have repaired time and time again. And we're being told that they really are not worth repairing. So we'll be slowly purchasing those. And 2810 decreased this year as we had an expenditure for updating the educational testing that came out. So we're all updated with that. 2815, 494 is where we continue to support our South Oaks Northwell partnership. And if we go on to the next slide, in review of the proposed budget, it continues to support the work necessary to develop our students with IEPs and 504s in alignment with the profile of a graduate and our district's mission. The first two bullets are really around the mental health and social emotional development and are aligned with our district to provide our district's mission to provide necessary resources to meet each student's social emotional needs and engage in communication and collaboration with families by identifying and supporting our students' mental health needs. The continued co-teaching training and CPI training support our mission to meet the needs of each student and develop an inclusive environment. And to support our students' leadership and critical thinking and problem-solving skills, we'll continue to work on self-directed IEPs. The special education reading teachers and full-time resource room teachers, and I know we'll be talking more about that with staffing, but in the elementary buildings really align with our mission to meet each student's individual needs and develop confident, self-directed learners. And finally, the nursing support, equipment, and materials lend to creating a safe environment given our new COVID reality. So that's our budget and PPS in a nutshell. I want to thank you again for the continued support in development and allowing us to really address the unique needs of our learners and keeping with an inclusive environment.
Thank you so much. Questions? Seth?
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you very much for the presentation. My question is, you had started touching upon it, but my question is really about the number of students receiving special education services. It doesn't surprise me, unfortunately, that over the past year and a half that you're seeing an uptick, and you addressed that some of it is at the preschool level, but for now, some time, for the last 3 or 4 years now, we are seeing an uptick, not just in the past year, but the last 3 or 4 years. To what do you think we owe that uptick? Is it the way that we're implementing and evaluative strategies to capture more students to get them the services they need? Or is it new evaluative strategies and the crystal ball that you don't have, after we get through this crazy period, do you see this as a trend, or do you see it leveling or going down? Are the strategies that we're using working, but COVID really just put a little curveball in it?
Yeah, I think that that has a really big piece to do with it. The strategies that we are using are working. We have seen an increase in referrals, of course, this year because of significant concerns and the lack of traditional instruction over the last year, which has made it a little difficult for students. One of the other pieces I think that we have continued to see high referrals in are around reading and dyslexia. And I do believe that we've really started some very good practices district-wide in both our Tier 1 supports and RTI. I've worked very closely, our team has worked very closely with Eileen and Nino on really being sure that we have solid Tier 1, Tier 2 supports, and trying to shy away from the referral process for students until they've had that intervention. In addition, last year, you'll remember that we did go ahead and we were lucky enough that you all supported us having full-time resource room teachers to aid in the pre-referral strategies and in being able to evaluate students appropriately. Given COVID, our resource room teachers really became more remote teachers. So we're hoping to really be able to swing back in and target all of these areas that we've really been working so closely on.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm happy to see that we've been able to keep our students here in Plainview. So that makes me really happy. I just had a question, and I know we've brought this up in the past, and I don't know, maybe we revisit it now, but the ICT classes for 12th grade courses, is it a time to relook at that and say, you know what, at this point in time, this is a critical year. A lot of our students have lost some momentum. And for those students who need that extra support, do we look at that and say, you know what, this is the year we really need to relook at that? What is your thought on that?
So it's so interesting that you bring that up because I have a whole other presentation I've looked very closely at the last 3 years of our students in the ICT program, because we were looking to see, do we need to do this? Do we need to consider 12th grade ICT? And what the data really showed us, and again, I'm not prepared to show that tonight, but I'd be more than willing to at another time. What the data really showed us is that our students are very successful without ICT in 12th grade. Because of the fact it's twofold. We do continue to support them with appropriate services that are more similar to those that they would have in college. So we are transitioning them in that senior year so that they become more advocates for themselves and are better able to perform with the types of supports that they would be getting in college. The data shows us that students are able to maintain either the same or, in a lot of cases, higher grades in the programs that they take in their senior year that do not have special education, do not have ICT classes, but have the other supports. In addition, we have had students come back to our SEPTA who have said, in fact, this year, I think 2 or 3 of the presenters actually said that they were happy that senior year they did learn to advocate for themselves because it really helped them when they got to college to be more independent. So, I'm not sure that that's something that our students need. And I'd be concerned that, again, we're putting them in a program that does not exist in college, whereas resource room support, and support on a lower level does exist in college. I'd be more than happy to share that data at another time if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ginger? I just want to piggyback off of Seth's question. I think also the increase in population is due to phenomenal program that we have, that people come here because of our program. You know, when you can compare us with other school districts, it's not even apples to apples, and that we are very progressive, and that our students are ABA program, the other service we offer are just superior. And I think our reputation speaks for itself also.
Ginger, I have to agree with you so much on that. In fact, as we were preparing for tonight, I think it was last week, I called Rich and said, oh no, we have to look at that code. We have 2 new students who just came back in. And we are seeing, this morning, we had 2 new preschoolers, twins with autism who moved in. So like those types of things are happening throughout. People are coming here for our programs. The other piece that I didn't mention is the social emotional component, of course. You know, we are seeing increases in social emotional difficulties throughout our population. And quite often those students do end up needing to be classified with some additional resource room or educational academic support in addition to their emotional support.
Thank you. Gary?
Hi, I agree with Ginger. I think, you know, our special ed program is one of the crown jewels of our district. And I also have to look at the reality that it's also an area that costs are really skyrocketing. And a lot of those costs aren't the internal costs here, but more the external costs we're getting for like Boces and out of district placements, even though these numbers are lower. So I know you can't fix what's going on in those other places, but is there something on a more systemic way that we can look at this? Because clearly I don't think there's any incentive for the other outside placements to be nearly as cost efficient as we try to be, because we're spending taxpayer dollars as opposed to it's taxpayer dollars that goes into these programs, but it's a little bit different. So I admire and everything you guys are doing to keep everyone in the program if they can, but I'm just looking at, you know, where we have cost centers, and it's just the trend is alarming to me.
So one of the things that I've prided myself on the last 3 years is I am involved on what's called the Boces think tank, where 3 of us from the South Shore directors and 3 of us from the North Shore directors have been asked to participate with the Boces directors to talk about everything from funding to allocation to the types of programs they run and the expenses. We've had discussions as of recently as to, you know, are there aids being used and can we take them off if they're not being used, you know? So we are involved in that constant dialogue. So that's absolutely one area that continuing to address. The other piece is, you know, as we've been able to develop and support our students more in district, less students have to go out. Always looking to see if we can devise additional programming to support our students. Those are the 2 places that I'm really we're trying as a, you know, as a team to be involved in.
Thank you very much. I think it's great that you're working with other districts on that BOCES program, because the only way we're going to get ahead there is by people like you putting that effort in and reminding them that, you know, it's a whole process here, not just a blank check.
And they've been quite open to it. Years prior, for like 3 years, prior to 3 years ago, it was really difficult for us to even have these discussions. Now their director brings us together for the discussions. So I'm hoping we'll see some light that way.
Thank you.
Thank you and your staff so much for this great budget, as well as running our great special ed program. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night. And next, since I see Mr. Braco, I'm assuming we're doing athletics, physical education, health and recreation.
Yes. Thank you and good evening. So I would like to take a moment to thank the Board of Education, Dr. Mary O'Meara, and all of the central administration staff for inviting me here tonight to discuss our budget. I would especially like to thank Mr. Cunningham and his staff for helping me create this year's budget that I feel that meets the needs of all of our students here at Plainview Old Bethpage. This year was one unlike any other. I had a lot of unique circumstances that I felt that our department did a great job of really finding ways that we can expand and be creative as a department. You know, one of the things is we completely redesigned our entire PE and health department to meet all the safety guidelines. By nature, phys ed and health are close group classes that we really had to structure and find ways that we can keep social distancing possible. So I'm very proud of our teachers and our staff to be able to do that. Our PE lessons this year, we took a little turn. We changed what we were looking for. We did a lot of mindfulness up at the high school, spent almost a whole month on mindfulness coming back from Christmas break. Also, our Fridays up at the middle school on the Fridays, we incorporated an SEL program called the Believe in You program, which was a program through Varsity Brands to discuss various social emotional learning topics within the class that we found very beneficial for our kids. Finally, the one thing that I wanted to point out, that picture on the far right of our bowler, that was the first act of one of our student athletes in an interscholastic athletic event this year. After not being able to participate in the fall or the winter, and that was the first time that a student athlete wearing a hockey uniform was able to participate for us. So that was a very special moment for our department this year. So we're very proud of that. Mr. Cunningham, the next slide. Safe learning and citizenship, right now, we are currently in the process of testing our student athletes up at the high school and at our 2 middle schools. We have conducted over 450 COVID tests during that time for our high-risk sports. And I'm very proud to say that working with Dolores and Mr. Donnarumma and Alex Goldberg and all of our testing COVID coordinators, that the process has gone very smooth and that it's been a very beneficial component to what we have been able to reintroduce our athletic program to Plainview Bethpage. As I mentioned, we have been able to successfully restart an entire athletic program and following all the safety protocols and measures that have shown that they've been highly effective and making sure that our kids are safe while participating in physical activity. We can go to we've also brought in some various speakers to talk about healthy relationships. We can continue our Safe Date program up at the high school for our health ed program, which was a very good. We were very proud of that as well. Going into the budget, if you look at it on the first page, the middle school and POB equipment code for athletics up at the top, they are very similar to the 2021 budget. This is because we limited what we were buying this year. So we are looking to buy those equipments in the 21-22 budget. In the athletic equipment code, 2855 to 250, you'll see some decreases from the previous year, and some of the equipment will be a carryover due to us not purchasing this year, but we are purchasing soccer goals that are much needed up at the high school, some team benches for over at Stratford Road for our soccer field over there, and also over at our tennis courts up at the high school. We're looking to finish the construction on our softball batting cage as well, just to kind of finalize that construction as well. Next page, Rich. You'll see that there was a slight increase on this page in our budget line for the Boces game officials. This is due to contractual obligations between NASSAR, the NASSAR Officials Association, and Section 8. It's just a requirement. It's based upon their contractual obligations. There was one of the proudest things that we were able to do last year in our budget was getting a second athletic trainer for our middle school student athletes that I feel is very beneficial to the safety of them. And I want to thank Dr. O'Meara and Mr. Cunningham about helping us to get that back into the budget this year. There is a slight decrease, but that is due to that we've actually negotiated a contract. Well, Mr. Cunningham negotiated a contract with Arlen and Cohen, so we can actually reduce that from $60,000 from in 2021 down to $53,000 this year, and still have the same service that we were looking for last year. One of the biggest areas that we were able to decrease for next year was our supply code for athletics. There's a reason for that. We're able to do that because there's shortened seasons this year. So the supplies that we typically would have been using this year, we can use and roll over some into the next year. So we feel that through very careful inventory management, we feel that we have the ability to reduce the supply code by that amount and still be able to meet the needs of all of our students and athletes and all the supplies that they'll need to be successful next year. So once again, I'm very proud to be able to propose a budget to the Board of Education and to the town that's almost $25,000 less than the previous year, but also being able to meet all the needs of our student athletes. Thank you for your time. You know, as the budget says, we do have a new middle school athletic trainer. Soccer goes at the high school. We're going to work on finalizing the softball batting cage. We have over 80 different teams that we're going to be supporting with this, and also all of the K through 12 health and physical education program. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braco. Questions? Okay, great job. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
That works. Have a great night.
That works. Okay, next we're going to go to art and digital instruction. Welcome, Mr. Wiley.
Good evening, everyone. Just share my
Dr.
screen
Wiley,
here.
I'm sorry.
Thumbs up, everyone can see my screen.
It's good.
Okay, thank you. Before I begin, as always, I too would like to thank the Board of Education and Central Office publicly for all that they do and your continuous support of the arts here at Plainview Old Bethpage. As you know, the arts here at our district are alive and well and are truly lighting the way. This is evidenced throughout this presentation. You'll see a number of pieces that the students have created. On this slide alone, there are 2 slides that really represent what we've all been talking about in all these presentations tonight. Plainview Old Bethpage, we're all in this together, and the importance of peace and love. The budget proposed tonight goes to support our K through 12 art programs that are in place and the highlight really of our programs. We have an enriched K through 6 art program that follows right to our middle school 5 through 8 program. We have an accelerated studio art program here in the district for all 8th graders at both middle schools to take part in, that then go to our high school and take part in various number of sequential art courses at our high school, advanced design, computer aided classes as well. And they follow up and end their high school career in preparation for their college studies with our numerous AP art courses here, drawing, painting, computer graphics, AP art history, and as well as AP 3D art. We're proud to still provide traditional and digital photography here at our high school, one of only a few districts that still offer that to students. This budget proposal also supports our students and their ability to take part in a number of local, state, and national art competitions and exhibitions. This slide highlights these accomplishments. Some that I'd like to highlight: we had 2 students that were named Long Island Arts Alliance Scholar Artist winners this year. We have a great history of winners in that category. There's only 20 seniors selected in all of Long Island for that award, and we look to have a number of winners next year as well. We have over 50 students each year participate in our Nassau County Art Supervisors Association All County exhibit. And this year we had a winner, an 8th grade student, take part in our NYSADA, which is the New York State Art Teachers Association Youth Art Month flag design. And she won. She was the overall winner of that flag design. The theme was Art Connects Us. And you can see that flag design here in this presentation on the upper right. So we're very proud of our students and all that they accomplish in the arts. Here is the art budget, the proposed budget for next year. We did reallocate some funds throughout this budget to look to the future and provide more supplies for our students. What we have learned in this pandemic world is that some of the supplies that we often share amongst many students, we need to individualize and purchase more of those supplies, those consumable supplies for our students, both in our schools and wherever they may be come September. If they're home, we provided those supplies for students in our remote program this year, and we would look to do so next year. The equipment lines pretty much stay the same. This is part of our 5-year plan. Each year, we reallocate funds based upon need of the different school buildings. Those are mostly large budget items like furniture, cabinets, tables, large trimmers, charging device carts. So you can see here in the budget lines where those materials and equipment materials will go for next year. We do have a slight decrease for our proposed contractual. This is, again, art memberships in national, local, and state organizations. And a lot of those organizations have reduced their costs based upon everything that's going on. And some of the operations or the things that students participate in have gone down in cost as well. So overall, again, we have a reduced budget, but due to efficiencies, and we're looking to provide everything that we do currently with our students for next year in our art programs, K through 12. And my final slide here is just, again, going over what this budget truly supports, and it's all about the students. This budget supports art supplies for all students, participation in organizations, and opportunities for students to really thrive in participating in exhibitions and virtual field trips and contests. And we look to also update our equipment each and every year in our buildings for our students and teachers to utilize to create this amazing artwork that you're seeing here throughout this presentation. Are there any questions? Thank you for having me tonight.
Gary?
Once again, phenomenal department, phenomenal achievements, all that good stuff. It's art and digital. So I just want to make sure that we're refreshing the computers that we use on a cycled basis so that we don't end up with machines that aren't able to run the latest software, that we get new digital cameras and things like tablets and Wacom tablets and stuff like that. And it's your budget. I'm sure it's the right budget, but I also want to make sure that we're cycling that stuff through and renewing it, refreshing it on a regular basis.
I can say we do that thoroughly. Within this budget, there are a number of digital devices like digital SLR cameras and Wacom tablets, drawing tablets for our students. I also work very closely with our director of technology, our technology department, as well as our curriculum department to provide those technology pieces. We've in the past upgraded and started to provide digital iPads for our students because the drawing on those devices are far superior than any other type of device. And a number of years ago, we did upgrade, as you probably remember, our computers throughout the department. Our computers that we use in the arts department for these design and animation courses aren't the regular computers that you would see in a normal instructional space. They are computers that are robust, they're strong, they're fast, they run the programs very efficiently for our students. So we always look ahead, and I work with other departments to make sure that our students have what they need in terms of cutting edge technology and equipment throughout the department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan?
Hi, Dr. Wiley. Thank you.
Hi.
First, I just want to compliment all the artwork on your slides are incredible. Absolutely, absolutely just incredible. Particularly, I fell in love with Jillian Z's Plainview Love. Was that a pencil drawing? On like the first slide, I think
Yep.
it was.
Watercolor, mixed media, I would say.
Oh my God, amazing. If she ever wants to make lithographs, please let me know. Anyway, my question is, in coding, we are using Kitio for portfolio tracking up through into college. Is there something like that for the art student?
Yes, so they use some different programs in the animation, gaming, and website design course. They do design websites with HTML coding and different programs, different than just the typical Codoyo. They use a program called Unreal Engine to create animations and then websites in that classroom itself. So it's creating websites not just from the technical standpoint and the coding standpoint, but you're developing websites that are aesthetically pleasing and implementing other things like moving images, animations, graphics that they've created as well in that class.
Right, but I was thinking, actually, thank you for answering that, and I appreciate that. I was thinking more for that, the student who's doing line work, actual drawing.
Like computer graphics, two-dimensional computer work.
That and like what Jillian just did, and was that going to follow her in a digital portfolio up through college and into up through
Yes.
high school?
Students starting in studio art do create a portfolio, and they keep that portfolio all the way through AP art and high school. And one thing that's actually built into this budget is some digital printers for our middle school accelerated studio art program, so that they can start implementing more of the digital arts in middle school as well. Looking forward to the sequential art courses like computer graphics and animation, gaming, and website design in high school, and develop that portfolio, not just in traditional drawing and painting techniques, but also in digital techniques at the middle school level, and follow that up in high school.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wiley, and I'd like to echo Susan, and I think Gary said something also about the beautiful presentation you put together. We really love to see the kids' artwork, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and now we're going to begin our music and performing arts budget.
Good evening, everybody, to the Board of Education, the superintendent, and the cabinet of superintendents, and my colleagues. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening to talk a little bit about the music and performing arts budget. And I'd like to begin with a quote from last night's Grammys. Last night, the host Trevor Noah concluded the show by saying, "This has been a difficult year for all of us, but especially music educators. Try teaching trombone over Wi-Fi." And I share this as a little bit of a jest, but also as a segue into talking about some of the things we have accomplished here in the Music and Performing Arts Department for the past year and how we plan to drive the next year forward. This year, to align with the district initiatives of responsive teaching and learning, we've used more subscriptions as an instructional tool than ever. And many of the videos you've seen and the things you've heard, such as the orchestra concert from December, some of the a cappella videos, and there's more to come, have been done with our instructional tools, our different music subscriptions. We always have our need for sheet music and scores. And as we continue to grow our ensembles and grow the level and authenticity of music, students have taken an interest in arranging and composing their own music and their own variations of famous pieces that they've grown accustomed to. And this has also led to a greater understanding of theory and analyzation of musical scores. We can move on. Next slide. To align with citizenship and safe learning environments, we've been totally COVID mindful, but as we continue to move again forward and progress through the year, we've used music to give back to the community by giving free performances, offering things at a reduced cost so that the community can enjoy it, and including in the past year some really nice community events. We had one general music teacher in an elementary school write songs and poems and create cards for the first responders and hospital workers at Plainview Hospital. The Tri-M students tutoring for free to help prepare students throughout the district for NYSSMA and other concerts in their instrumental programs. And we've partnered with local colleges like Five Towns, Adelphi, and Malloy for different workshops and experiences for the students regarding composition and instruction, guitar work, and some jazz. We've also reimagined some of our performances due to the restrictions of COVID-19 that music can sometimes implement on us. But we've created smaller chamber ensembles. We've been consistent in our lesson program, and we've been able to produce music at a high quality level throughout all of this, and we intend to move forward. As we look at the numbers in the budget on the next slide, you can see that we've done our best to be as cost effective as possible to align more with what our actual expenditures have been in the past. So we were planning to continue to have a student have instruments in the students' hands, have music for them to read, have subscriptions for them to compose and be creative on. And what I'm really most proud about this budget is it maintains our instrument inventory, it maintains our pianos, it allows the students to be creative. It also supports them in the high level honors ensembles that we've had so many students participate in, including all state, all national, all Eastern, LISFA, all county, NYSBTA, NATS, and the list every year seems to keep growing with students who want to engage and audition for these performances, and they are being accepted. Going on to the next slide, you can see some alignment of our budget, again, to be more cost effective, to align with the actual expenditures. But we've also added some licenses with PROs, which are performance readiness organizations like BMI and ASCAP. And as we produce more things that come up on YouTube, we are now a licensed district, which is really incredible and great to see. We continue to go along with our robust theater program. We had a wonderful production at Growing Up Broadway at POB Middle School. We have another production coming up from Matlin Middle School and POB JFK High School. And as those continue to be performed, we supply them with the rights and some supplies that they will need. The textbook, if there's any questions regarding that, that encompasses most of our sheet music and things like that, and lesson books that the students receive. And going on to the next slide, here represents most of our consumable supplies, such as cork grease, smaller instruments, reeds, bows, drumsticks, things like that. And over a course of a music program, those things can add up. But again, we just aligned our best with the most cost-effective strategy we had to the most accurate actual expenditures that everybody has. And in the equipment codes under $1,000, a lot of that actually falls on stands and different cases and things that the instruments will need that do get dilapidated and worn out over time. As we continue to grow, we plan to continue to purchase more marching band uniforms as the program grows and have more of a variety of sizes. And that really sums up our entire budget. As we continue to move forward for the next year and many years to come, I always like to say that we are extremely proud and are a leader in musical instructional technology. And we have availability from students in the elementary level all the way through 12th grade to have a supportive music curriculum with these subscriptions and connected to our Chromebook initiative. So students have a one-to-one device. They have a one-to-one way to make music at home, collaboratively with each other and in class. As we continue to grow our program and we purchase more instruments that come into the district, we are continuing to maintain them at the highest quality so they are able to be played for many, many years. And as more opportunities, as I said before, come up for students to be in these honor and enriching ensembles, we'll continue to support them as best we can to show off their talents, both individually, as ensembles, and collaboratively. I'd like to end with a quote from Stevie Wonder. "Music is a world within itself, with a language we all understand, with an equal opportunity for all to sing, dance, and clap their hands." And even though the past year has been difficult for live music and performances to take place, we have found a way. And we found a way because of many stakeholders in the community, including the Board of Education, most importantly, the superintendent, the cabinets, the teachers, my colleagues, and the parents in the community to make music happen and be alive. And without the support of all of those stakeholders, we wouldn't be where we are. And to have such a clear vision for the future to keep music alive and well. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer anything I can.
Ginger?
It's not really a question as much as a statement. When it comes to the arts, music and art, it's a way for children to learn to express themselves. It comes from the soul. And in a way, this is so much of SCL because they can express themselves. You can tell when a child is happy, a musician, with the songs that they choose to play. If they're sad, if they're melancholy, it's the same thing when you look at artwork and you look at the colors that are used and the depth of it, it just shows passion. And I think that these are two programs in our district that I know myself, but I speak for the board, we're extremely proud of. We don't always win, but we always win because our students learn life's lessons that nobody else can teach them. And as I said at the Triumph, this is something they can take with them for their entire lives. And I hope they realize how very special they are, because there are many people, myself included, who can't play an instrument, who can't carry a tune. I can paint, but I only wish I had the ability to express myself through music, because if I sing, even my dog howls. Oh, doesn't pay. But I just want to thank you for a phenomenal program and for all the students and staff that have worked so hard this year to give our kids everything that they deserve and a gift to take with them forever. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lieberman, and the staff is really to be thanked. They work tirelessly for many, many hours, day and night, to ensure all the students have that ability to be creative. And what you echoed about the students needing to express themselves, we made sure this year that they had that facility to do that, and we will continue to support that mission.
Thanks, Ginger. Susan and then Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Thank you for a lovely presentation. Being an alumni of Plainview Bethpage music program, I understand that completely, and having two children who went through the music program as well. So thank you, and thank you to all the professionals who are making music happen and performing arts happen in our buildings, in our virtual. I see it's part of Bridges, the clubs. I do have a question for you. I asked the same question of Dr. Wiley earlier. What are we doing for the students and digital portfolios? That's so important, particularly at the high school, showing their growth, showing, colleges and jobs, if they're going to even try to get jobs, outside gigs as they get older. How are we supporting those students? That they don't have to go to an outside source necessarily, that we can do this in-house. We have the technology. We have, one thing we did learn through the pandemic is the video technology, as Gary had mentioned earlier, as someone mentioned earlier about editing. If we can do that now, maybe this is something we can help our students and relieve some financial burdens that would be extracurricular to families.
Ms. Stewart, that's a great question, and I'm going to be happy to answer it because this year, very organically, that very thing actually has happened. And in terms of students creating a digital profile for music, this year, all of the NYSSMA festivals have gone virtual. And that in itself has required the students to create videos of themselves playing and performing. And we have offered support, and we will continue to offer support for them to do that. And we're hoping that that will begin to serve as a bank of video performances that they can include in a digital portfolio to eventually send to colleges, to send to opportunities for gigs if they continue to play professionally after they leave high school. With so many of our performances also now being recorded and being streamed and having the facility to do that, we intend to continue to provide the students with the links to include those if it's on YouTube, and we have that to provide. But we will continue to search and to create those opportunities for students to record themselves, record their ability of what they're able to do with the support of their teachers. And we've done our best to empower the students to learn how to use some of the editing software and some of the recording software that they all are given subscriptions to so that they can do that. And for example, the subscription we have of Soundtrap, that's a very user-friendly program for students to record themselves, to listen back to themselves, and then send in recordings. And students this year have actually done that.
That sounds wonderful. And maybe that's also a conversation for curriculum, I guess, when that music lab, Ginger, right? Sorry.
Lauren?
So I echo, how I feel about our music department. I love it. I just had a question about rentals. So in a COVID world, when you rent out an instrument, I'm just more curious than anything. Does the student, let's say at the elementary level in 4th grade, take it with them to the middle school, or do they return it and then we sanitize it? I'm more curious about the cleanliness of the instrument. And then, sorry, Mom, thanks.
No.
And then if, and board member thing, and then if, I'll let you answer part A, I guess, and then I'll ask my second question based on your answer.
So I'm so glad that you asked this question because I very rarely get an opportunity to explain the process here, but I'll be quick and concise because I know it is late. So basically, when we rent instruments, we receive them from our instrument rental vendor at the beginning of the year, and instruments that we have in stock, we send out over the summer to be flushed and cleaned and repaired. And that requires changing some of the pads, flushing out some of the gunk that builds up in between it, the buildup of cork grease and things like that. And they all use chemicals and cleaners that are safe. This year, when we received our instruments, we assured that they were dropped off at least 2 weeks prior. And once they were dropped off, the teachers took it upon themselves to clean the instruments themselves with Steraspray and different cleaners that we purchased as a district to make sure that everything was clean. And we provided them a list of the best ways to service each one of those instruments to make sure that they were cleanly. We made it a point that no students are sharing instruments that are rented. At the end of the year, if an instrument is rented through the school, that'll be returned to the vendor, and it's actually on the vendor's part of the contract is that they take the instruments back, and it's their responsibility to clean them and take care of them. And our repair budget actually covers those cleanings and those repairs and the big flushing out of instruments throughout the summer. And almost all of the teachers will spend the last few days in June organizing all their instruments by case, tagging them with what needs to be done so they are serviced, clean, and ready for students to come back in September ready to play.
Okay, great. Then I don't have a question B. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Gary?
Mike, just phenomenal department, phenomenal what you've been able to do this year in a world that had to be virtualized and remote. And that's my industry and that's what I do. And the saying that I have is in 2020, we made live streaming work. In 2021, we're going to make it work better, look better, and easier. I'm going to add something to that, and that is sound better. So I want to make sure, we're a high performing district. And I mean that in terms of the performances that we do. And those performances should look that good when we stream them as well. And I'm even looking, we've cobbled something together and it's a start for our Board of Ed meetings and stuff like that. But our live streaming and our ability to produce live events, I would say, is challenged and needs improvement and needs technology, but it also needs students to learn how to operate and be able to do this stuff so that we can have, better production. So I'd like to know, for next year's budget, is there some money in to make sure that our high school performances, bands, choirs, musical, theater, have the ability to be live streamed, for those things that are like plays? Are we spending the extra money for the digital rights so that we can stream the performances as well without problems like that? Because I think that's the whole thing. These kids are performers and they want to be seen. And I think the best way to be seen is live streaming, and it's not going away. But I think it's up to us to make sure that we have the quality of equipment, of gear and productions that are up to the task of what our kids are producing, because our kids are doing great stuff. And it should look that great when the grandparents or a college recruiter or someone else is seeing it remotely over a live stream.
Gary, that's a great question. And I have an answer for you as well. And the short answer is yes, we do have the facility to do that. And organically this year, we saw the need for students to learn how to operate the subscriptions we have. And as they're getting better, some of these subscriptions are changing to be more user-friendly for students, so that they can do some of their own independent recordings. Now, in terms of the live streaming and things like that, we don't necessarily budget for that in the music department. Mr. Carbo, our high school tech person, he has the facility for the cameras and things like that for filming and recording. But we do work together to see what would be of the best need in the types of microphones and making sure that the teachers understand how to work the soundboards and things like that. Now, to answer your question about the rights, I alluded to this before. We do have the rights for the live streaming for the PRO rights, the Performance Readiness Organization rights, and we have licenses with BMI and ASCAP, which gives us facility of hundreds of thousands of songs to be live streamed without a problem. In terms of the theater arts, there's about 5 different criteria that would be negotiated when you purchase the rights to do the show on how you would live stream it. And we do have that budgeted for, because we know that that's going to come up and we know that it'll be able to reach so many other students that way. I mean, families around the world, really.
Great answer. So I guess it's an interdepartmental budget challenge, but I'd love for us to see to at least get one of our auditoriums to be an event space that we could really do live productions and live streaming with pride out of. Really had, the proper lighting, audio, and cameras and equipment. And I don't know if it's in the budget for this year or for next year, but I think it's something that certainly our performers, our kids, and our staff who work on it deserve to have.
Well, and I can certainly say that we are doing our best to get the full functionality out of so many of the new light boards and the soundboards that we have. And that, like I said, as that technology continues to grow and change, we're getting better and better at learning it. And we're really doing our best to empower the kids to really make our performances fuller and better, as you said, and sounding great.
Kara?
So I just want to say thank you. We have such an amazing program, and it allows us to like Ginger was saying, it allows our students to express themselves, but it gives, everybody has something, right? So if you play a sport, you have a sport. If you are a performer, you have, and the amount of different performances we give. We were watching some movie with my girls the other day, and I was talking to them about a cappella and saying, and there was like sing off going on. And I was like, you guys really haven't seen it, but it's really amazing. And they're like, yeah, we did. We went to the show at the school and we saw the choir and we, they get to experience these things as little kids. So as we start to open up, I just want to remind everybody to come and come see these performances, because the little ones see it and it really gives them an idea of what they can potentially accomplish as they get older. I want to thank you for everything you've been doing. I know it hasn't been easy with all the requirements and guidelines in place for the music, and you've done an excellent job.
Thank you, Ms. Rock. Very much appreciated.
So thank you very much, Mr. Rogers, and your great music department for this budget and for an amazing music program. And we truly can't wait and the performing arts in person, hopefully sometime very soon. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bernstein. And thank you very much for allowing me the time to present this. And I hope you all have a great week. Thank you.
You too. Thank you. And finally, our last budget presentation, District Library. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you very much. I hope everybody's having a good evening. A long evening, but a good one, I'm sure. All right, I'm going to get right to it. Let me open up my presentation. Okay, can you all see this as it's loading?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this has been an interesting year for all of us. And it's presented some unique opportunities for those of us in the libraries. I think it's provided us with some opportunities to really demonstrate our strengths. One of the things that our team was really successful with this year in particular was the ability to support our teachers as we pivoted to remote learning. We were prepared, we were able to provide them with the resources, with instruction in the resources, and also something else that we really invested a lot of our time in was becoming experts in a lot of the resources that suddenly became available for free to our district and to teachers all over the nation as a result of COVID. So many of us participated in multiple webinars, facilitated PD for our staff, created screencasts. And one of our strengths, I think in particular, is being familiar with the different levels of comfort with technology of our staff, because I'm sure as you can imagine, it was a little more challenging for some of the staff members to make that transition to full remote learning. So being able to address those teachers one-on-one and meet them at their level was really, really, I think, a great thing that we were able to do for them. So of course, with the pivot to remote learning and the one-to-one as it extended back through elementary from kindergarten up all the way up to 12th, we continue to address, and it became more critical this year, issues and concepts dealing with digital citizenship and media literacy, and helping our students learn how to navigate the online world in a safe and responsible way and become smart users of online information. Moving right ahead to our budget. Our goal really was to, when we were developing our budget, was really to maintain our subscriptions to our digital resources. We were able to really get a good sense of what our teachers were finding useful because of the switch to remote learning, our teachers became more reliant on using those resources, and some of them had probably not used them previously. So we were able to really get a good handle on what teachers were using, what they found useful. We sent out surveys, we had conversations. So we really wanted to continue to at least maintain our subscriptions to our digital resources, which includes not just databases, but also online newspapers and digital ebooks So you may notice that on this slide, we have really reallocated a lot of our money that we previously had spent on periodicals and magazines. And we took those monies and reinvested them in our digital resources. So a lot of us dramatically reduced what we were previously investing in periodicals and magazines. We do want to continue to invest in books. Of course, we are moving more towards ebooks with the uncertainty of the rest of this school year and going into next school year. And in addition to ebooks, we're also subscribing to digital streaming services. So that's where we're investing some of our media software monies. So as we developed our budget, we want to continue the amazing work we've done in the libraries and continue to support in-classroom instruction, but of course, be able to work with our teachers and our students to provide them the information, the resources, high quality, curated materials that they can use that are engaging. And we want to be the experts for them. We want to be able to help them, whatever their needs are, and continue to develop our students as future ready, and really work with the community on collaborating and developing those resources as well. That's it.
Questions, Gary?
I just want to make a comment that I think it's so great that part of our library program has evolved to include, media and understanding what's out there and having the kids, think about what they're seeing on social media, wherever it is, and that the libraries have become the center for that. I think is wonderful. I think you've just done a great job, and I see you've got the money and the technology for that. So I don't think you need any more money for it, but I just wanted to compliment you. Great job on that, and keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you. That's something we're really, really passionate about, is that the whole concept of digital citizenship. I think I've said this before. I feel like it's something that maybe isn't really being addressed in any other area as of yet. So we really have kind of taken the lead in that, and it's because I think it's really crucial. Yeah.
Thank you. Susan?
Thank you again, and it's great to see the technology piece being, looked at and funded. I do have a question. As our demographics and as our world around us are changing, are the libraries in the buildings, elementary through secondary, also the selections changing a bit? Are we including some of those the lesser known stories?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. To answer your question, I have to say my team has been very sensitive to that, in particular this year, and really made an effort to collaborate and to look into resources, ones that we haven't used in the past, or maybe ones that aren't as popular as we have used with our curriculum, but we've made an effort to address those social issues and really make sure we're presenting a diverse perspective. Yeah.
Right, and I'm reading so much research on the mirroring of seeing someone like yourself in a story, either fictional or non-fictional, and to being able to aspire to seeing that person as yourself, or going through the struggles that you may be, going through. So I do truly appreciate that the librarians, yourself, and the selection, the supporting classroom selections, because obviously classroom selections aren't going to be as robust as the school library would be.
Right.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Talone, for presenting this budget and for our wonderful library
Thank you very
programs
much.
throughout the district.
And thank you
Thanks
very much for your support.
And that concludes our budget presentations. Do any board members have anything that they'd like to ask for, the rest of our budget cycle? Any information that they would like to get, if you can share it either tonight or in the next few days, so that Central has enough time to look into it. Or any other questions tonight, more general questions? No, okay. I just had one question that I don't expect an answer tonight, but earlier this year, we saw gaps in our first grade reading program, in our first graders in terms of reading. And, you know, we realized that those students missed the last 3 months of kindergarten when a lot of these skills are acquired. And we addressed them very successfully. Does this budget include resources and staffing to address academic gaps that we might find going forward next year, K through 12?
Yes, they absolutely do. And hopefully with the return of some normalcy, a lot of our AIS interventionists will return to their previous role as an interventionist as opposed to a classroom teacher.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of our administrators for all of the hard work that they've done and the attention to detail on presenting and preparing their budgets. And now we will go on to public participation. District policy number 1510.1 provides that persons wishing to make comments or raise questions shall once state their name and address and indicate on whose behalf they are speaking. If a non-resident, the policy prohibits public discussion on matters relating to staff and students at which their reputation, privacy, or rights to due process or those of others could in some way be violated. As a reminder, a video recording of this meeting, including public participation, is being made and will be posted on the district's website. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes. We thank you in advance for being respectful of other speakers, the Board of Education, and all staff members. The floor is now open. Do we have questions from Ask the Superintendent?
We only have one from Mr. Wolfner. Thank you, Jock. It's good to hear from you. He had a question about the increase in POBMS's supply, their instructional supply line, and that is related to robotics and tech supply replenishment, along with science mats like paramecium, glass, and plastic supplies.
Dr. O'Mara, his question also asked about the Matlin Middle School. It's the supply lines in both middle schools. So there's a typo, but the way I look at it is school 32 and 36 are Matlin and POB Middle School. So when I looked at Matlin's budget, I saw an increase in some requests for consumable supplies, particularly art, home and careers. As you know, we did change our strategy this year due to COVID because we no longer were sharing crayons and things like that. We also had kind of take-home supplies that students were going home with 7th and 8th grade. So we really went down in our stock in consumables, and we're assuming at least for some part of the year, we might be doing something similar next year, at least putting in a provision for that.
Thank you. And seeing no other speakers or receiving other questions, public participation is closed. But I would like to thank Mr. Wolfner for his continuing interest in our budget and representing our district on the Boces Budget Committee. So thank you. And now we're going to go on to new business. May I have a motion for the resolution to use for use of existing capital reserve fund? Seth, second Lauren. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. May I have a motion on the legal notice for the annual district meeting and election? Ginger, second. Susan, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Can I have a motion on the recommendation to accept the proposed calendar for the Thank you. For the proposed budget calendar for the 21-22 school year? Tara, second Lauren. Discussion. All those in favor? Thank you, Gary. Oh, you have a discussion?
I think we should mention that we are planning on the next the next board meeting to actually discuss the calendar for next year. But that's not what this item is.
Thank you. All those in favor? Okay, and then finally, can I have a motion on the resolution to change the date of a Board of Education meeting? Ginger, second, Seth. I think that was from a Wednesday, the 14th of April to Monday, April 12th. All those in favor? Thank you. May I have a motion to go into executive session to obtain legal advice from District Counsel? Tara, second, Susan. All those in favor? Thank you, and thank you for joining us.